The heart of the philosophical and theological project of Pope St. John Paul II the Great consists in the proclamation of the truth and dignity of the human person, revealed in the light of Jesus Christ, the final and definitive Adam. As a young bishop from Kraków, Poland, John Paul II had participated in the Second Vatican Council, and he had had a direct role in the drafting of the pastoral constitution on the Church in the modern world, entitled Gaudium et Spes, of the Second Vatican Council. In that document, the Council Fathers proclaimed that the truth is that only in the mystery of the incarnate Word does the mystery of man take on light, for Adam, the first man, was a figure of him who was to come, namely Christ the Lord. Christ, the final Adam, by the revelation of the mystery of the Father and his love, fully reveals man to man himself and makes his supreme calling clear. In other words, Jesus Christ is the light that enlightens all light. He alone reveals to man the truth and dignity of his nature and unveils his vocation in the eternal divine plan. To understand the human person, we need to fix our gaze on Jesus Christ. As a matter of fact, historically speaking, the concept of person emerged from the Church's historic quest for an understanding of the personhood of Jesus Christ. Writing in the pages of Communio International Catholic Review, Joseph Ratzinger explained that the concept of person, as well as the idea that stands behind this concept, is a product of Christian theology. The concept of the person is one of the contributions to human thought made possible and provided by Christian faith. It did not simply grow out of mere human philosophizing. It thereby gave to this word a new meaning and opened up a new dimension of human thought. But John Paul II's experience in Poland under Nazi and Soviet occupation and oppression taught him that somewhere in the course of the 20th century, the societies of the world had lost touch with the truth and dignity of the human person. The effects of the 20th century in his own homeland were truly devastating. He had seen an age of martyrs come to the fore. He had witnessed 2 world wars, the rise of multiple totalitarian regimes, widespread moral and cultural degradation, and the accumulation of oceans of bloodshed and mountains of corpses. The human person had been reduced to a manipulable cog in the ambitious wheel of centralized government. But the problem lay elsewhere as well. In the wealthy liberal societies of the West, the human person had become a sexualized commodity that could be bought and sold, and the product of that sexual exchange, the unborn child, had become an inconvenient consequence that had to be done away with by whatever means necessary. Therefore, when he arrived on the chair of St. Peter after the October 1978 conclave, Pope St. John Paul II determined to bridge the gap between culture and the gospel. The ties between the two had been severed somewhere in the course of the 20th century, and the roots of contemporary Western culture were no longer anchored in the gospel. In his important post-synodal apostolic exhortation Evangelii Nuntiandi on the proclamation and announcement of the gospel in the modern world, John Paul II's predecessor, Pope St. Paul VI, had remarked that the split between the gospel and culture is without a doubt the drama of our time, just as it was of other times. Therefore, every effort must be made to ensure a full evangelization of culture, or more correctly, of cultures. They have to be regenerated by an encounter with the gospel. But this encounter will not take place if the gospel is not proclaimed. Despite the long shadows of the 20th century, there were bright spots of hope for this world. Despite the rise of authoritarian regimes, successive waves of democratization spread across the planet. International and transnational bodies like the United Nations had shown renewed interest in human rights. And here at home in the United States of America, there was a rising culture of civil rights focused on the dignity and equality of all persons. For his part, Pope John Paul II was determined to bring the Church and her gospel into direct contact and dialogue with the gatekeepers of contemporary culture. In the inaugural homily of his pontificate, he told teeming masses gathered inside St. Peter's Square, "Be not afraid, open wide the doors to Christ." And as he stated in his inaugural encyclical letter, Redemptor Hominis, the Church cannot abandon man, For his destiny, that is to say, his election, calling, birth and death, salvation or perdition, is so closely and unbreakably linked with Christ. He went on to remark, "We are speaking precisely of each man on this planet. This earth that the Creator gave to the first man, saying to the man and the woman, 'Subdue it and have dominion.' Each man in all the unrepeatable reality of what he is and what he does, of his intellect and will, of his conscience and heart. Man who in his reality has, because he is a person, a history of his life that is his own, and most important, a history of his soul that is his own. Man who, in keeping with the openness of his spirit within, and also with the many diverse needs of his body and his existence in time, writes this personal history of his through numerous bonds, contacts, situations, and social structures linking him with other men, beginning to do so from the first moment of existence on earth, from the moment of his conception and birth. Man, in the full truth of his existence, of his personal being, and also of his community and social being, in the sphere of his own family, in the sphere of society and very diverse contexts, in the sphere of his own nation or people, perhaps still only that of his clan or tribe, and in the sphere of the whole of mankind, this man is the primary route that the Church must travel in fulfilling her mission. He is the primary and fundamental way for the Church, the way traced by Christ himself, the way that leads invariably through the mystery of the Incarnation and the Redemption. Thus, John Paul II would launch bold new initiatives such as World Youth Day and the Pontifical Council for Culture, which he founded on May 20th, 1982. This latter comprised two sections, Faith and Culture and Dialogue with Cultures, completing the work once begun by the Pontifical Council for Dialogue with Non-Believers that had been founded in 1965. Taken together, these initiatives comprised his outreach to humanity at the dawn of the third Christian millennium. He sought through these works to accompany the man of today in his questionings and searchings for truth and dignity. In this way, John Paul II's philosophical preoccupation with the mystery of the human person had been translated into a ground-breaking pastoral program, at the core of which shone the light of Christ.